Every great house needs good staff. That is what my mother said to me as my 5-year-old son pulled a heavy, gray industrial cleaning apron out of his Christmas gift box. She didn't blink. She didn't stutter. She just smiled that thin, tight smile and pointed to the professional broom set she'd wrapped for my daughter. Tyler is going to run this family one day, she continued, gesturing to my nephew who was already tearing into a $2,000 drone. He needs to learn to lead. Your children need to learn their place early. Tyler snorted, revving the drone's propellers near my son's head. Yeah, he sneered. Make sure you get the mud off my boots before you leave. I didn't scream. I just stood up, took the aprons from my children's confused hands, dropped them directly into the trash can, and walked out the front door without saying a single word. Before I tell you what I found on my server the next morning, and exactly how I made them pay for those aprons, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from. I want to see how far this story travels. The drive back to my condo was terrifyingly quiet. Leo and Mia fell asleep in the backseat before we even hit the highway, clutching the empty space where real gifts should have been. I didn't turn on the radio. I needed the silence to process the fact that I had just orphaned myself. For 32 years I had been the dutiful daughter, the fixer, the safety net. But as the miles blurred past, I realized I wasn't grieving the loss of my parents. I was grieving the time I had wasted trying to buy their love. When we got home I carried the kids to bed, tucked them in and walked straight to my home office. I didn't make tea. I didn't pace the floor. I sat down and opened my laptop. I am the lead landscape architect for one of the most aggressive firms in the city, but for the last 3 years, I have been ghost designing the Green City project for my family's firm. It was supposed to be my legacy, a massive eco-friendly urban park system worth millions. But because my name isn't Justin, my father insisted I do the work in the shadows while my brother took the meetings. I logged into the firm's private server. My plan was simple: revoke their access, watermark my designs and leverage them for an apology. But the moment my screen flickered to life I stopped breathing. The access logs were scrolling in real time. Someone was currently logged in as admin. I stared at the screen and for a second my resolve wavered. Why was I surprised? Why did part of me still want to call my dad and ask for an explanation? That is the invisible chain of the survivor. It's a psychological debt you are raised to believe you owe. From the time I was 6, my parents taught me that Justin was the investment and I was the insurance policy. I wasn't just a sister. I was the organ donor, the bank account, the backup plan. They conditioned me to believe that my survival was a privilege they granted me, and the rent was due every single day. 3 years ago my father called me weeping, saying the company was going under. He said they would lose the estate. I drained my entire life savings, $50,000 that I had scraped together by working double shifts and freelancing until my eyes burned. I wrote them a check to save the family legacy. 2 weeks later, Justin pulled up in a brand new $70,000 luxury SUV. When I asked about it, my mother told me to stop being jealous, that appearances mattered for business. I swallowed that rage then. I told myself I was helping. But I wasn't helping. I was paying a ransom for a love that didn't exist. But sitting there in the dark watching the cursor blink, the chain finally snapped. They had trained a servant, yes. But they forgot that the servant is the one who holds the keys to the castle. I looked closer at the file directory on the screen. The Green City master folder wasn't just being viewed. It was being moved. I watched the progress bar inch toward 100%. Moving files. Not copying. Moving. I tried to cancel the command, my fingers flying across the keyboard to initiate a remote lockdown, but a red box flashed on the screen. Administrative access revoked. I stared at those 3 words. They weren't just an error message. They were an eviction notice. I tried the backups. Corrupted. I tried the cloud mirror. In the span of 30 seconds, 3 years of my life, thousands of hours of rendering, environmental impact studies and structural schematics, had simply vanished. The Green City project wasn't just a portfolio piece. It was a $3.5 million contract that I had built from the ground up. It was the future of the firm. And now it was gone. My phone buzzed on the desk, vibrating against the wood like a warning shot. I picked it up. It was a message from Justin. No, Merry Christmas. No, sorry about Mom. Just a photo. It was a selfie. He was sitting in the back of a luxury car, holding a crystal flute of champagne, wearing that smug, untouchable grin that had gotten him out of every speeding ticket and failed class his entire life. The caption underneath read, "Thanks for the inheritance, little aunt. Don't worry, I'll put my name on the title block so it actually sells. You stick to sweeping." I didn't throw the phone. I didn't cry. I felt a strange, cold calm settle over me, like the temperature in the room had dropped 20 degrees. This wasn't just a stolen credit. This was a hostile takeover. Justin knew he couldn't design a doghouse, let alone an urban ecosystem. He needed my work to land the partnership with the Global Developers Group this week. But he didn't just want the money. He wanted to erase me. By deleting the backups and locking me out, he ensured I couldn't prove authorship. He was banking on the fact that I was the good sister, the one who would never sue her own family, the one who would swallow the loss to keep the peace. He thought he was taking credit. He didn't realize he was taking the pin out of a grenade. I looked at the photo again. Little aunt. That's what he used to call me when we were kids, stepping on my sandcastles because he knew Dad would just laugh and say I built them in the wrong spot. He thought I was small. He thought I was powerless because I didn't have his title or his inheritance. But Justin made a critical error. He forgot who actually built the castle. He stole the files, yes. He stole the renders, the blueprints, the client data. But he didn't check the code. He didn't look beneath the surface of the 3D geometry. If he had, he might have seen the digital tripwire I buried there years ago, waiting for a day exactly like this. I put the phone down. I didn't need to call a lawyer. I didn't need to beg for my access back. I just needed to be in the room when he tried to sell a product he didn't understand. Panic is for amateurs. It's for people who trust that the world is fair. I stopped believing the world was fair when I was 12 years old and watched my parents buy my brother a pony while I got a second-hand bicycle that was missing a pedal. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't call the police. I didn't waste time screaming into a pillow. I sat forward in my chair, the glow of the monitor reflecting in my eyes, and opened a command terminal that I had hidden on my laptop years ago. Justin thought he was a genius because he knew how to change an admin password. He thought stealing the files was the end of the game. But he made the classic mistake of the parasite. He assumed he understood the host. He saw the Green City project as a collection of pretty pictures and sellable assets. He didn't understand that it was a living, breathing system I had coded from the ground up. And because I knew exactly who my brother was, a thief with a smile, I had taken precautions. I typed in a string of code that didn't look like anything special. Just a series of random characters to the untrained eye. But on the screen a hidden directory popped up. It wasn't on the company server. It was local, buried deep in the metadata of the 3D geometry itself. Architects call it a digital watermark. I call it a dead man's switch. 3 years ago when I started building the core models for the project, I embedded a script into the foundation of the virtual city. It's invisible. You can render the city 1,000 times, walk through it in VR, print it on blueprints, and you will never see it. It sits dormant, waiting for a specific command to wake up. It was my insurance policy. I knew that one day my family would try to take this from me. I just didn't know when. I checked the status of the script. It was active. It was waiting. Justin had the files, yes. He had the presentation ready for the global developers group. I checked the industry news feed on my second monitor. The pitch meeting was scheduled for Tuesday morning at the downtown real estate exchange. That was 48 hours away. He was going to stand on a stage in front of investors worth billions and present my work as his own. He was going to smile that golden boy smile and sell my soul to the highest bidder. I closed the laptop. The cold calm I felt earlier hardened into something brittle and sharp. I didn't need to hack into their server to get the files back. I didn't need to stop the meeting. In fact, I needed the meeting to happen. I needed him to be on that stage. I needed the lights to be bright and the stakes to be impossibly high. Because the script I wrote doesn't just delete files. It exposes them. But there was a catch. The trigger wasn't remote. To prevent accidental detonation, I had hard-coded the execution command to require a local handshake. I had to be on the same Wi-Fi network as the presentation computer. I had to be in the room. Tuesday morning broke with the kind of aggressive sunshine that feels like a mockery when you know you might be walking into your own execution. I stood outside the real estate exchange, a fortress of glass and steel where the city's skyline was bought and sold. Inside, in less than 30 minutes, the global developers group would decide the fate of the Green City project. My project. I adjusted my blazer, gripped my phone, the detonator, and walked toward the security checkpoint. I didn't have a plan B. My entire strategy relied on the arrogance of my brother. I assumed he would be too busy polishing his ego to remember to revoke my building clearance. I was wrong. I tapped my badge against the scanner. Instead of the familiar green chirp, the machine let out a low, angry buzz. The light flashed red. Access denied. I tried again. Red. Ma'am. A security guard, a man whose neck was wider than my head, stepped in front of the turnstile. Badge is invalid. You need to step back. There's a mistake, I said, my voice steady despite the sudden drop in my stomach. I'm the lead architect on the morning pitch. My name is Giselle. He didn't even look at his screen. System says your credentials were scrubbed yesterday. Terminated with cause. You're on the do not admit list. Terminated. Justin hadn't just stolen the work. He had anticipated I would try to save it. He had preemptively fired me from the company I helped build just to keep me out of this room. I stood there, frozen, realizing the fatal flaw in my plan. The dead man's switch required a local handshake. I had to be on the internal Wi-Fi. If I was standing on the sidewalk, I was nothing but a spectator to my own robbery. Then a black SUV pulled up to the curb. The VIP doors opened. My parents stepped out first. Richard looked like a statesman in his tailored suit. Patricia was glowing in pearls and silk, playing the role of the proud matriarch perfectly. And then came Justin. He stepped out onto the pavement, adjusting his cufflinks, looking every inch the visionary genius he pretended to be. They were laughing. They were celebrating before the ink was even dry. Then they saw me. They didn't look afraid. They didn't look guilty. My mother actually sighed, a look of profound disappointment, as if I were a stain on her perfect morning. My father shook his head, turning his back to usher my mother inside. But Justin stopped. He looked at me standing behind the security line, blocked by the guard holding a phone that was now useless. He smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of the boy who broke my toys and knew he wouldn't get in trouble. He leaned in close to the glass doors, made eye contact with me and mouthed 2 words. Go home. Then he turned and walked into the lobby, the golden doors sliding shut behind him. I was locked out. The pitch was starting in 20 minutes. He was going to sell my life's work for $3.5 million, and I was going to be left on the pavement with absolutely nothing. I didn't argue with the guard. I didn't make a scene in the lobby. I simply stepped out of his line of sight, pulled out my phone, and scrolled to a contact I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Marcus Sterling. He was the lead developer for the rival firm bidding against my family today. 2 years ago I had tipped him off about a zoning violation on one of his sites. Not to help him, but because it was the right thing to do. He owed me. I sent one text. I'm in the lobby. I can prove the Green City IP is stolen. Get me in. 2 minutes later the elevator doors opened. Sterling walked out, flanked by his legal team. He didn't ask questions. He didn't ask for proof yet. He just looked at the guard and said, "She's my external consultant. She's with us." The guard stepped aside. Just like that, the fortress walls crumbled. I walked into the boardroom at the back of the pack, slipping into the shadows near the AV console. The room was massive, but all the oxygen was being sucked up by the man on the stage. Justin was in his element. He was standing in front of a 20-foot LED wall, displaying a rotating 3D model of my city. He looked confident, charismatic, and completely fraudulent. This ecosystem, he was saying, gesturing broadly, was born from a vision I had 3 years ago. It's not just architecture. It's a philosophy I've cultivated. My parents were in the front row, nodding like bobbleheads. They looked so proud. Proud of the lie. Proud of the thief. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the Wi-Fi settings. The network name popped up. RX_conference. I typed in the guest password Sterling had just whispered to me. Connected. The handshake was complete. The dead man's switch, buried in the presentation software, pinged my phone. It was awake. It was waiting for authorization. I looked at Justin one last time. He was laughing at a joke he'd just made, basking in the admiration of billionaires. He truly believed he had won. He believed that erasing my name from the file was the same as erasing my existence. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel hesitation. I felt like a judge dropping a gavel. I tapped execute. I didn't look at the screen. I looked at Justin's face. In 1 second his arrogant grin vanished. His eyes went wide, reflecting a sudden violent wash of crimson light. The ambient lighting in the room didn't change, but the massive LED wall behind him had turned the color of fresh blood. A shocked silence fell over the room. Investors leaned forward, my parents stood, and Justin froze as his bright eco-city vanished from the screen. In its place, a flashing red wireframe shouted the truth. Stolen property. Author, D.r.a.m.a. Signature forged. Project terminated. Justin hammered the clicker, begging the tech to fix it. Nothing. It's a hack, he stuttered. It's not, I said, stepping forward. It's a copyright claim. I left before the chaos erupted. The elevator doors closed on shouting investors and my mother's frantic excuses. In the garage I reached my car, until a fist slammed onto the hood. My father, wild-eyed and purple with rage, blocked my escape. You think you won? He yelled. I just took out a $50,000 loan against your condo using your power of attorney. The money is gone. You're broke. Homeless. But he had forgotten one detail. The account he wired the funds through belonged to both of us. A joint account. And I had already moved the money. You didn't save Justin, I told him. You paid me. He stared, stunned as I drove away. Outside, sunlight hit the windshield. I had $50,000, a job offer waiting, and, finally, a life no one else controlled.